Hello everybody, welcome. Welcome to the third Saturday Reader Series at Tsunami Books. Before I introduce our first reader, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that brought refreshments tonight, and especially Martha and Jerry Gatchel. Yeah, thank you guys. They always bring refreshments and wine and stuff, and some other people brought some wine tonight, so help yourself to whatever wine. It's all free. I would like to extend our thanks to Scott Landfield and Tsunami Books for making these readings possible and all they do for the arts in our community. Tsunami is struggling to stay here and be a vibrant force in our community, so please do whatever you can to support them. They have great events here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine, thank you.
It's not even on. Well, is that bothering anyone? It's pretty loud. Does everybody hear the buzz? Oh. All right, let's see if we can do something.
Turn it down. So if I unplug this, how many buzzes? Is it back?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Right on. Oh, that works. We never know.
Okay, so continuing on. Where were we? Oh yeah, so support support Tsunami Books wherever you can. And Groundwaters. We have one of Groundwaters' editors here tonight, Jen, who's reading. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Groundwaters magazine. They publish a seasonal quarterly literary magazine. All over. It's distributed all over Lane County. Right? For free. Check that out. Good place to get published too. Let's see. All of the readers, speaking of Tsunami Books, all of the readers, including myself tonight, have agreed to donate 40% of all our sales to Tsunami Books to help them. So keep that in mind if you're considering buying a book tonight. You're not only helping the author, but you're helping Tsunami Books as well. And also, there's, as well as our own books, there's copies of Cascadia, which is, I took over the publishing of this from Laura Hugh and Chaos Press, who's published it for the last few years. This is the Oregon Student Poetry Contest, sponsored by the Oregon Poetry Association. And so there's copies of this year's book back there as well, so check that out too. All right, on to our first reader, Bruce Barton. I first met Bruce at the Northwest Poets Concord in 2012. And he was there with a wonderful group of Ashland poets. And we all shared some great presentations and experiences. Bruce is the author of The Last Poems of the 20th Century from Wellstone Press, and co-author of A Path Through Stone, a cycle of poems. His newest book, released this year, is The Book of Baruchio, intentional poems that dance and wrestle with faith. His articles, essays, and poems have appeared in independent newspapers and magazines. During his many years in business, he wrote advertising copy for radio, television, newspapers, and the internet. He was often invited to speak on Jewish customs at churches and in high school and college classes. Bruce Barton's poems can be heard at OregonPoeticVoices.com. Please welcome Bruce Barton.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you, Scott. It's great to be here reading with Stephen and Jim tonight, and to be here at Tsunami. It's been a while since I've read in Eugene, quite a while actually. I used to come here all the time because I had two sons who went to school here, so I was a regular driving up from Ashland all the time. It was fun. Look forward to it. This new book of mine, the Book of Baruchio, was almost not a book. It was supposed to be part of the last book that I put out, The Last Poems. It was going to be one section. There was a section about writers, after my many years in a writing group, about the writing process, and a section about a men's group, where we did a lot of inner work, you know, and there's a lot of poems that came out of that. This book this section was going to be about something more than that, beyond that, something seeking. And that took place in a Jewish prayer circle. And this book is, deals entirely with that subject. So what happened is, I never expected to put many of these things into a book, especially a book all by itself. It was really written, the particular writings for a particular time and place, services usually. And what happened was, and it was also meant for a particular crowd of people who already were immersed in the subject matter. So what happened was, years went by, and I was able to reflect on what I had participated in, what I had witnessed, and I wrote my own commentary. And that commentary, in the form of poetry, some serious, some humorous, was what helped me complete the book. So you might say that the earlier work was where I was dancing, and the later work was where I was wrestling. I'm going to jump back and forth between the two books at the very beginning and then finish with poems just from this book. A man's tradition. It's our tradition to ride bareback at the sunrise of a second manhood, looking to exchange something we know for something we can feel. This is from the other book, and it comes from the writing section. It's called Source. The angel of the morning finds me without words, inhaling with beginner's praise, head arcing eastward, the river's cold water passing with an evasive truth. If dreams are memories, am I less in control, knowing my words were once somebody else's, like leaves off our maple tree, caught on a late fall wind, not caring in whose yard they land. That instant, I cannot sing my true song in places out of tune, or dance with unrestricted feeling when the sky is unaligned. What refreshes my palate is that instant when I catch the sound of my own laugh in the midst of chaos. In order for me to get serious about writing and completing these books so they can be published, I had to consider selling my business. And this poem was written while I was considering that. I'll say it's a business I had for 30 years, so it was hard to let go. Jump. A sea of temporary blue invites him to take a dive, away from the twitching neon and the constant glare of glass, into this season's connection of moments. How can he leave a routine that provides food and eases sleep while he searches for words to fill a page? Which is the escape, which the calling? Amidst the concurrent juggle of obligations, a cotton flag brushed with blessings becomes his holiest guide. Now, as we get into the majority of poems that are left in this book, I'll have to explain a few words. When I use the word Torah, I'm referring, of course, to the first 5 books of the Bible as they were originally written in Hebrew, handwritten on parchment scrolls. And a key word that you might want to know is sphirot. That comes from the mystical teachings, and that's an emanation of the divine. There are 10 of them, and they're often depicted as spheres. I am a Torah. I am a Torah, compressed in immediacy, susceptible to interpretation, a frayed person with creased margins, dusty from traveling unprotected across the sand. I am brushstrokes measured horizontally, my letters curling like waves of spherote on the way home. Black letters on innocent white skin breathe my vulnerability. I emerge in tradition, wound tight with good intention. Illuminated by candlelight, my faith has no limit, like it was then, like it will be. In my travels, I've been to a lot of different houses of worship. Genuflector, bent over, straight, bent over, straight. The young man genuflects the way some men pray, with the need to hug someone and cry, while secretly wishing to tear wings off angels. The creek continues. In a peripatetic release of energy, water diving underwater becomes a foil to human endeavor. It flows with an escaped urgency equaled only by unbridled thoughts rafting interior rapids. This abusive, uncaring force pressure washes boulders and roots, penetrating the endangered. Through sliced logs and eroded banks, colliding channels race each other to their predetermined destination. Winding tributary of fate, is your insistence connected to the arbitrariness of clouds, or some master plan handed down from mountains with no end in sight? They say to have good Zen practice, you have to have good faith, good doubt, and good determination. I like that because you could say that about writers and writing, and many other religions, perhaps. Pirouetting in prayer. He went from a naive believer, unafraid of the words, to learned believer, chewing on the words, to disillusioned believer, gagging on the words, to skeptical believer, escaping from the words, to balletic believer, praying without the words. I was watching a public television special a while back, and it was about the old-time comedians. They didn't hold anything sacred, but they had to use metaphor because they couldn't use the language that current-day comedians use, because there's an outlet for it, television shows, clubs. But what these two groups had in common was that no subject was off limits. Jewish nightcap. Missing link to our forefathers. Who could know how much you uncovered, cut off from the past? Ancient rooted symbol of the covenant. Knowing you briefly, I am still attached. You were so small. Can I ever imagine you, fully grown, taut in tan elastic sheath, protector of the future, convenient catch-all and cover-up, predictable crown of kings. Look where my people have gone without you. I always believed you were not meant for me, that I must endure being willfully different, surviving the centuries with less. Blasting through the ages to the beat of your pulse, you made the case that more is better. Foreskin and 7 days ago, I weep for you. You can laugh. Oh yeah, I always like to do one of these while I'm reading. I have this thing I call poet cards. I usually use them to send out for readings, but sometimes I put my little sayings on them. So this one says, going out on a limb means climbing your own tree. Actually, it's in this book. I recently attended a bar mitzvah, son of a friend of ours, and what I was impressed with was how the kids these days, at least some of them with good training, have a grasp for what they're doing, and they can speak intelligently, with help, of course, but I think that's due to more enlightened teachers and certainly parents and maybe even grandparents. That wasn't always the case over 60 years ago when I was studying for my bar mitzvah. There's a couple of words in here you might want to know. Yarmulke is a prayer cap, and bima is the raised place. That's where the service is conducted. A vision rerun. That one image of my bar mitzvah, tucked neatly under my yarmulke, captures a portrait from the bima of frozen faces, framed in silence, trapped between the ark and Torah table, surrounded by two giants in black robes, guarding the entrance and exit, like the lions of Judah. I could go nowhere but into the scrolls, like our ancestors, who plunged into the Red Sea without preparation, before time clarified understanding. They, like me, had to act. Acting meant doing the next thing. Our lives are forever lived, doing the next thing. Today I prepare patiently, absorbing what's necessary, anticipating that moment where I need to choose between the head's practical caution and the heart's openness to risk. This poem is dedicated, as is this book, to Rabbi Aryeh Hirschfield. He was my rabbi for a number of years in Ashland. He started the Havurah Shir Hadash down there. Later he moved to Portland, but he actually started here in the 70s in Eugene. So he's familiar to a lot of folks who are here still. He drowned in 2009. Words for Reb Aryeh. I recall you floating in the Dead Sea, your athletic body on the liquid salt. Nothing could touch you here. Now my words are afloat, the words that couldn't come, words way over my head, saturated with interpretation, flailing for a way out. Landlubber, you only left the ground for a jump shot. Against the will of the heavens and the stone cold of the earth, the mother to us all opened her seductive arms to take you when no one was looking. An eagle feather come loose. Tonight, I fall asleep with your words, your yearning, our returning. I ride the wave of your melodies, your returning, our yearning. This next poem starts with an epigraph, and it's by Baruchio of all people. Changes. As we walk the narrow path of passionate moderation, we are flanked by the open pits of extremism, waiting to pull us down. Winter holds on with the cold grip of one last frost. A chilling wind kicks its feet in the face of the emerging light. We hold on to customs that shuttle us from one temporary place to another, choosing the familiar path to inevitable change. Our feet drag over each stepping stone, yearning for the vanished shelter of childhood. To release ourselves from this invisible hold, we need a faith that looks first before it finds the courage to leap, where together we defrost our safely frozen habits for a soft but undecipherable promise yet to come. For a final poem, I'd like to read a little ditty called Avracadabra. Again, in the mystical teachings, the Kabbalah, that's where the quote comes from. Avracadabra. The Kabbalah says, Avracadabra, Hebrew for, I create what I speak. Writing can be like prayer or song. All you have to do is say the words, Avracadabra, and create what you speak. Snap your fingers, say the magic words, Avracadabra, you have a poem. Snap your fingers, say the magic words, Avracadabra, you have a prayer. Say the words, I create what I speak. Avracadabra.